and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard, and I'll be your host for this evening. And our show tonight has the title, it's Legends Untold from a Young and Inspiring Man. Now, I know why it's called that, and you will know why it's called that. And I'm joined tonight by a Mr. Kevin Young from Inspiring Games. So hello Kevin, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. Good evening, how are you?
I know, it's two Scottish people.
Will we speak the Queen's English tonight? We'll do our best anyway.
Yeah, we kind of just say, alright man,
No.
how's it going?
Alright,
You alright,
Chief.
You alright, Chief? How's it
going?
on the side deck? I say when they just stick a bit like that, the numbers will fall.
We'll be fine.
It'll be absolutely
no,
brilliant.
quite right. One must enunciate properly this evening, darling.
We
yes.
shall indeed. If folk are already going to be going, this is going to be absolute madness. But the reason that you are here tonight is to, obviously, we've been speaking for a little while, on and off. Yeah. Because, as people know, I generally hang about a couple of places, and one of them is the UK Kickstarter Facebook page. And you are going to be launching a game called Legends Untold on Kickstarter in the foreseeable future. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yeah, we're at the Scary Bears stage 2 weeks to go, yes.
And how scary are your bears? Are they?
They're quite grisly, yeah.
They're not. We're past the panda stage, and then
we're well past panda stage, yeah.
Fantastic. What we like to do is, the reason that we do this is, as we always say, there are quite simply, there are just not enough podcasts about board games. I check iTunes, just not enough.
I can't find any.
I've given up searching. The other reason that we do this is because there's quite simply not enough podcasts where it's two Scottish guys talking to each other.
Well, there is a USP there tonight, I suppose.
That's what we're doing. And if we go into pure Fife or pure Edinburgh Fife, then you'll just have to bear with us. What we'll do is we'll do a transcript on the show.
I was wondering how the subtitles would work. Yeah.
That'd be interesting, because people will still go, what do you mean Reekin? What does that mean? What do you mean Glaikit? What does that mean? We'll just confuse the American listeners. Will be going, we have no idea.
I've no idea. No, the game sounds cool, hopefully, but no idea what he's on about yet.
So one of the things we talk about, obviously before we jump into the main event, is to find out a little bit about yourself. I mean, we've done it with John Gilmore, we've done it with Gary Butterfield, we've done it with Matt Gilbert. So, Mr. Kevin Young, how did you get involved in the world of cardboard, or as I sometimes jokingly put it, what kind of Monopoly strategy did you use?
That's a good question. I'm one of those did it while he was young, took a break and returned with a vengeance gamers, that type 2 gamer. So I think when I was about 10, somebody introduced me to this thing called Redbox Dungeons and Dragons at the time.
All right.
That's how old I am. Yep. And we had it was a really good day. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was great fun, and kind of from there migrated on to other role-playing games of the era, like Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, and all that kind of vampire stuff that was out at the time. And then somebody said, "There's a shop called this Games Workshop. Do you want to try that out?" And I know. I've got to say, I probably don't play much of their stuff now, can't afford it anyway. 2 kids, I don't have the money. But some of the first edition stuff like Space Hulk and things like that, still very much a fan of that kind of thing. And then I got a bit into historics as well.
All right.
And it was, and that was kind of, to me, I've got one of these groups actually that nobody else is interested in historic gaming apart from me. So it's a fairly lonely war that I run.
So one of the things we talk about, or one of the things we like to kind of get people involved at We're Not Wizards, is by kind of breaking down these barriers and the jargon. So if you're obviously if you're interested in the historic side of things, what is it about? What is this?
What is this historic thing about?
What is this historic thing about?
Yeah, I suppose I'm specifically talking about tabletop miniature based stuff. Although there are, some of the board games as well. I think for me, it's the interest of the colours and the uniforms and the era and the idea that you can. I love my fantasy type stuff, but the idea of, I guess I watched Sharp and I thought, ooh, pushing around lots of 15mm miniatures all around the tabletop, that could be kind of fun, and really enjoyed it for the time. And then I looked into other eras as well, and it was really good. But it's, as you say, the tabletop industry is, or the scene, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the time people are in that. In their own little niche. Let's go with niche, shall we?
Niche is fine, either.
Niche is fine. And their own little niche, and they don't kind of come out and play, so to speak. So, whilst I enjoy it, as I say, not most of my friends would kind of say, "Well, that's great. I've got a musket, but where's the dragon, Kev? where's the lasgun? Where's the stormbolter?" So yeah, don't do it too much, but enjoy it. And I guess from there, finally. When I stopped gaming, board games of course were around, but they were never the huge thing that they are now. I mean, just absolutely massive. And then I came back. I went off into the real world, into kind of Muggle world for 10 years or so, and then it was somebody's. I think it was somebody's stag do or something like that. It was let's just have a game, and they brought out this.
Let's just get crazy.
Yeah, let's get crazy, and they're gamers, so what was it going to be? It's a game, and they brought out, I think it was Bang the card game actually.
Oh right, okay.
And that was me. I was like, oh god, it's a new dawn, and then of course there's just games everywhere now, absolutely everywhere. So probably for about the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, just been really enjoying the golden era that everybody keeps talking about. But it does feel like a much stronger scene than the one that I kind of took a break from for about a decade.
I think that's most people's history. I'm still waiting on the person that's going to turn up and just say, listen, I started at the very, very beginning, and it was me alone that bought every single game that ever came out of Germany, and all the American ones that came out. In fact, I've got a second house, which is just almost made of cardboard. And I've yet to find them. So if you're listening
I've not got them yet.
If you're listening to this and you were the person who did not take a break, like all of us other people who got on with stuff, then get in touch. Send us an email, magic@wearenotwizards.com or .co.uk, whatever picks your fancy.
Sponsored by Kallax.
No, we'd like to get these people on, because everybody says, well, I started at 14, got to 17, took a break, and then came back after various life events, and then found a copy of Settlers of Catan or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Similar
that's
story.
How everybody goes on. So do you keep up? Obviously, you're keeping up with the historic side of things. And does that include things like, are you into your bolt action and stuff like that? Is that something that tickles you?
It interests me, but it's pretty much just something I read now because I don't. I guess I spend the vast majority of any time I get on game design and the Kickstarter just now, and B, I don't. My man cave has very much shrunk to not a lot now, with the family, so I cannot justify storage space for miniatures or even big boxes anymore, and also my eyesight's going. Sound that old, but painting stuff kind of probably doesn't. It used to be the thing to do, but it probably doesn't. It doesn't interest me as much anymore, just because I get sore eyes.
I'm with you on that. I've discovered I needed reading glasses.
There you go. That's the one.
very, very recently. So I discovered the delights of realising how actually kind of I couldn't see.
Yes.
I'm kind of even sitting down and recording and realising I was reading show notes, and then realising I was reading them 5 inches away from my face, and then realising I actually was in the point of trying to read them from my computer and having my entire computer at arm's length. So that was a bit. So no, I'm with you, brother, on that one.
So suddenly the appeal of painting stripes on a sergeant's arm or something diminishes.
Exactly. Look at that. Look, if you look at that, I've written his initials and his name in the top of the notebook. I'm like, what are you talking about? The miniature. Which one? The one, the one right in front of you. The one on the hill. What hill?
Yeah, they're going to create a new scale for us. It's going to be, 90mm
It's
scale
gonna
or
be
something.
like just like normal size. You kind of needed and here's the big gun. Oh, this is.
Yeah.
We can't actually have a game in the hall. You've got to you got to have it outside like everybody else, and then everybody looks funny at you because you're toting around a big box of a couple of trailers of plastic miniatures, which are actual real size. So
Yeah, that's the one.
is there anything that you're kind of got your eye on at the moment? I know there's nothing. Everybody, I think the ultimate goal with every board gamer is to eventually own more board games than it would ever be physically possible to play. Because I've seen the videos on YouTube where you got a guy with a big wall of board games behind him, and everyone is thinking that's quite a collection, and I'm also thinking, I know how much time it takes to put content out there. There's no way you're even playing these. You're not. No. You're just
no.
I
know.
Yourself.
And it's great when you see these. When you see the posts on the forums, it's fast. It's brilliant that people get so passionate about it. But I've got to say, I was discussing this with some friends the other day, and I'm not entirely convinced on the when a game murders another game type argument. I mean, I get the point, but. Hey, we still like rolling out stuff that's tattered at the corner that's 15 years old, but it's fun to play. But maybe that's just me. I'm not quite the, I don't think something's obsolete just because there's a newer, better version out there.
Well, I mean, Space Hulk 2nd Edition, Space Hulk 3rd Edition. I'm sure that I don't know if there's going to be another Space Hulk, is there?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
We'll see.
Yeah.
There probably will be an extra edition. It'll be a computer game.
Aye.
It'll be an interactive.
Oh, I slipped in the AYA. Sorry. Yes, there will be. Yes.
Aye. Blossom.
Let's talk about pirates. No, the one thing actually I've got my mind on, got my eye on is I have to say the Arkham Living Card game. That really gets me excited. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. I'll be all over that because it's the kind of game I like. It's got depth. I think you can play it. I believe you can play it solo, certainly co-op. And it's collectible, but not it's not the CCG model, which I'm not where I would want to go with the game. So yeah, that's a lot of interest to me.
Yeah, I don't like blind. The blind bagging, the blind. I mean, I'm actually just. By saying that, I am the world's biggest hypocrite because after I spoke to Brian Wade about Magic, I did go out and buy was it a Kaladesh deck, and I'm delighted to say that I have no other kind of urges to go out and spend any more money on Magic at all.
Oh, there you go. I thought you were going to say,
no.
and I'm now $2,000 down the rabbit hole.
I'm $2,000, one kidney, and a potential second mortgage on the house kind of down, but we're not even there. I think it's more fascinated to see how it's going to play. As opposed to yes, I do need something else that I have to buy on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, there is the new Star Wars Destiny card game.
Oh, yeah.
Which we've seen that, and there's a little bit of coveting about it. I have. I think I'm going to be getting the starter set when it comes out. I'm pretty sure. It's going to turn up on my doorstep. I don't know how it happens. It's the magic.
That's the magic.
The magic of pressing online and not having to hand over cash, and therefore I don't
those
have
credit card companies. They keep hunting you down every month.
Exactly. What do you want? I've only got 2 kidneys. Do you take a cornea?
I'm still feeding my magic habit,
Exactly. No, what I'm doing is I'm starting to punt Pokemon instead, but I'm starting to have to cut it with Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm just not getting the same hit. It's not good. There you go. That was the first. We're not addicts.
Scottish culture and drugs. We're going to do train spotting next.
We could potentially choose life. Choose a big television. Choose some lovely cardboard. Choose a miniature set.
Choose a big box board game because they are getting big and expensive now.
Choose Scythe.
I love it. Well done, you. That's going to go on a
I
t-shirt.
didn't choose Scythe. I decided something else. Now, everybody else is now completely confused, but if you watch the first 5 minutes of Trainspotting, then you're going to just like go, yeah, that was quite good.
And we don't look like Renton. I certainly don't.
I look like I've eaten Renton.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the one.
Or I've maybe had him charged with something. Apparently there's a new film coming out though, so that'll be interesting. So we're not film wizards.
Yeah,
people would be saying, are they just sitting around just going to be sitting around having a drink? It's like, yes, we've gone full Scottish. We're having several drinks and a good conversation, and the fact you just happen to be eavesdropping on it is neither here nor there, to be perfectly honest. Yes, so we've got Star Wars Destiny. Obviously, that's coming out. That's very, very interesting. And then you mentioned the living card game as well for, what was it again?
Arkham.
Arkham, yes.
We'll
keep an eye on that. In terms of anything else that you've kind of seen kicking around,
stuff that I fancy playing. Well, there's always I'm quite fortunate at my work, and this is weird, but until recently, of the pod of kind of 5 people in our typical Scottish, let's just say, office job, you could figure it out pretty straightforward, where you're in the central belt. But believe it or not, 5 people. Normally you're 1 in 20, and everybody likes there's a sport called soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
You're that one person. But 4 or 5 were gamers, believe it or not. 4 out of 5. Yeah, no, it just I think there's one poor guy came in and started talking about Man United, and we're like, come on.
What were you saying?
Whoa.
What, United? United what? United men?
You talking about Guild Ball?
Yeah. Were you playing Dread Ball, or was that the original Blood Bowl? What version are you talking about?
What is this thing? So we're quite fortunate, and therefore had effectively a kind of almost like a Friday gaming library. So I got to try a lot of stuff on a Friday afternoon anyway, without having to purchase said games, which was good.
Okay.
And also one guy, I'll give him a shout out, Phil at my work. He's just got into the hobby about, I think it was about 7 months ago.
We do like them when they've got into the hobby.
But oh my god, it's like sponsored by IKEA. Honestly, you cannot move for the hotness. Some of the stuff he brings in, it's really, really cool to try. So I'm desperate to play it because he keeps raving about it, and it does look nice. Is Tricarian? Have you tried it?
I've seen it.
Yeah, it looks cool. Phil loves it, and he does seem to have good taste in games. So. Keen to try that one, and also I'm very keen to try, but I have to say, we were talking about eyesight as we continue to sip our virtual whiskies.
Yes.
But my patience for reading long rule books has diminished somewhat, sir, as well. So I'd love to play Mage Knight, but have no real interest to read the rule book for it.
I've seen that as well, and I understand that people that have played it really rave about it, and they say that it takes a while to get into, but it depends. The single player variation seems to be very, very good.
Yes.
And it seems to be very enjoyable, and there is a kind of a really decent, massive campaign that you can get involved in. So yes, it is one that it's done a basket hover. You know what I mean by that? It's been
I don't.
the basket, out the basket, in the basket, and it's been sitting there in the Amazon. You know what Amazon do? If you put something in your basket, then you leave it. You go back to your basket, and it says, "Oh, would you still like this? Kind of, would you consider maybe taking this one home as well?" And you're just like, "No, I must be strong. Now let me buy my 20 Netrunner expansion packs that I'm not going to play, and we'll say no more."
But they'll be there. It's an investment. They'll be worth something.
Absolutely. That's what I keep telling my accountant. Anyway.
Yes. What is the depreciation rate on a Netrunner card?
Well, if it's magic, it's different. I mean, I don't know if I find another Black Orchid.
Well,
I'm going to hurt somebody. Do you know what I mean?
it's yeah,
I
absolutely.
framed one and I used the other one to grout the bathroom. No, that's not true. Can you imagine doing that? Darling, what have you done with that card? Oh, the special card that was in the plastic. Well, you'll never guess what. This massive spider came in. I swear this spider had suitcases. It was huge. So what did you do with the card, honey? Well, it was the nearest one to hand, so I smashed open the box, took it out, and obviously I took out I had to just very quickly tip out the Ribena, and put it on the carpet and slid the card over underneath it. Okay, where's it now?
Yeah.
There'll be people that listen to this that play Magic that will be shuddering.
Yeah, you're not speaking for me, mate. No. Actually, that's a really good point, because we were talking about card sleeving the other day, and Phil, this chap I've mentioned, as I say, who's new to the hobby, but it's kind of like he's done 20 years worth in 3 months.
Yeah.
He was aghast that I don't sleeve my cards. Absolutely aghast. I know. So apparently I need to go on a course on how to look after my stuff properly.
I just think if you're able to make a house of cards, it's an awful lot of a better skill than being able to sleeve anything at all. Sleeving is unique. Well, the way I look at it, right, is if I lick a card, nobody else is touching it.
You're the dude at a gaming table where everybody's been playing Twilight Imperium for 5 hours or something, and you're the dude that spills a pint of, let's keep it Scottish, a pint of Iron Brew all over it, right? Yeah, that's you.
Oh, sorry, Butterfingers. I didn't really think, oh, you don't like your ships there anyway, let's just move this over. No, I checked his hand, he's fine, he's not going to win.
Yes. Really sorry to have. It's okay, but we can start again next week, because we can only do this once a year.
I know. No, that's fine. No. I mean, let's face it. It's not a very good game anyway. I mean, why would you play 5 hours? I mean, is that enjoyment? That's almost a job.
Okay, so now you've annihilated half your listeners. Are we going for Eurogamers next? No.
We love everybody equally.
Yes.
And
actually, joking apart, how often do you get those kind of games in? Those 10-hour I'm off for the day dear type games.
I think if I said I had 5 hours free, there would be a list produced from the back pocket quicker than I could say. Yeah, well, you're a married man. I mean, you know the list. Everybody.
You have responsibilities.
Here, here is the bleaching of the grouting in the bathroom.
Yeah, be careful for the dead spider.
Remember that. Remember, oh look, the skirting boards behind the sofa that nobody ever sees could do with a fresh lick of paint. So there's also that as well.
Yes.
And various other jobs. But speaking of, other jobs and concentrating, and let's firmly bring this back on track, because this has gone up to such a tangent I can't even talk about it. We might as well just call it the Going Off on a Tangent special. Yeah,
it's a lot of editing required.
There's no editing. We never edit.
Oh, sorry, we don't edit.
We don't edit. What's the point? If I started editing, all you would have would be hello, goodbye, and that would be it.
Hey.
So let's get into the meat and the crux of the matter.
Okay.
Because I have no idea how I'm going to write up the show notes for this. I might even need to listen to the episode before I make it live.
Okay.
Legends Untold. And this is the blurb. Now I'm going to read this.
Wow. When does this date it?
It's a cooperative adventure game combining the depth of an RPG with the speed of a card game with no GM required, so no genetic modifications required.
That's right, yeah.
So that's what that means. One of the things we never talk about is, obviously you're called Inspiring Games, but where did you get the inspiration? I mean, what made you move from... Because it's card game. It's card game. It sounds like card-based game. So what made you move from saying, thinking, oh, I'll do a historical miniatures game that hasn't been done before, or I'll try something else? What made you think, I'm going to do something which is kind of a card game instead? I mean, what kind of set you down that path? Have you?
It was I did a bit. So very long story short, when I said I got back into gaming after about 3 years of having played said games, I started turning into one of those people that criticised games or was critical of games, saying, wouldn't it be good if this mechanic worked or that mechanic worked, or that's a really good game if it wasn't just for this. And after a while, my friends, whom I love very much, were a bit like, okay, Kev, go and make a game then. Stop talking about it all the time. Sounds really good. Go off and do it. Which was 3 years ago. And joking apart, it really was. And so, and when I looked into it, I thought, well, why not? Midlife crisis is thundering down the tracks. Let's give it a go. So of course I tried to do some research and looked up the stuff by Stegmaier and Mathy on successful Kickstarter, and then I did a bit of kind of research on the business and what people play and what is likely to be commercially not necessarily successful but viable at least.
Yes.
So originally I started off with miniatures to me seemed like a doable. I mean, huge respect to Gary Devereaux and the guys you had on a few shows back as well, and what they're doing there. Massive success for them, fair play. But for me, it looked like a bit of a gamble because I can't sculpt, and so I didn't want our debut game to be something that...
the stuff that Gary and Aidan have done is pretty phenomenal.
Oh,
to
absolutely.
Be honest,
hugely impressive. But not my skill set, and so I didn't want to go off and do that as a debut game. That was my concern. So that put miniatures out of play, and when I looked role-playing games, we originally actually looked at doing a book-based role-playing game. There's some pretty good stats out there that basically show you that whilst role-playing game fans are fanatics, and you can get a huge following of very loyal gamers out there, the size of the market compared to the board game market is very small. So very, very, very hard to find that particular niche and make it commercially viable. Because of course you're playing against a couple of huge behemoths in that environment, which are beloved and hugely successful.
Yeah, and also it's always commitment, isn't it? I mean, if somebody rolls up and says, "I've got a new board game," then folk will go, "Okay, we'll give it a shot. It'll take a couple of hours."
Yeah,
if you're saying a role-playing game, it's like you've got to do the sell, haven't you? I mean, the first thing they're going to ask is, well, what system is it based around? Yeah. Is it Shadowrun? Am I going to be looking at tables constantly for the next 5 years? Or is it D&D? Is it Pathfinder? I mean, what kind of thing are we following? Kind of thing. So you moved. So you looked at that and you went, no. And you looked at miniatures and you went, no.
No, it's got to be in the board game territory. And then I just quickly realised that I had a look at a couple of categories within board gaming, and kind of quickly realised that I know it sounds odd, and actually some of my buddies have vehemently lambasted me for this, but you don't technically need a board to be a board game. Did he say that? But what I mean by that is that you can use. I know. You can use the cards in a modular way. I think Tom Vassal's got a category as cards as a board game or something, but it is. I know you've not had a chance to play it because real life keeps getting in the way for us, but it's pretty much a board game. It's just that it changes every time, and we've gone with cards because it can keep production costs down, which means that the risk of failure on the project is minimised. And that's because we want to make a good impression with fellow gamers out there, and also pass on those cost savings and keep it small. And also, I know it sounds crazy, and I had to check this out when I was at the expo as proof of concept. But for me, joking apart on the man cave part, I don't have a lot of storage space, so I wanted it to be a small box. And actually, the number of people that came up to us and said, that would be lovely, I don't actually want a big box game, I want something that's meaty but that's quite small, because then I can carry it around and also I can store it, was actually pretty huge. So
I think there's also the there's the prevention of the rolling of the eyes factor, which you'll know what I'm talking about, is when you go, look, I got this today, honey. And
well, yes.
depending on the size of the I mean, if it's obviously a DVD, it's kind of like, okay, that's fine. But if you're bringing in something which is like, something like Scythe or something like that, and you're going, what is that? And she unfortunately thought with the way it was wrapped up, it was like flowers. A nice big box of chocolates and some kind of like really nice flowers and stuff, or maybe a set of boots, because the box is that big for Scythe that could fit some decent boots. But no, so we got a slight roll of the eyes.
So you're saying I should market this game to the non-gaming counterparts, the wives, husbands, boyfriends, and girlfriends of the gamers?
I think to say this is potentially, how big is the box? I mean, this is the unique selling point. How big is the box?
Yeah, we're looking at something just now that's going to be in the region of about 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters, no bigger than that.
See, that's a winner.
Yeah, it's bijou, shall we say?
It's
and we were worried about it because we were worried about it because we thought, well, it's not a huge game, so people might just assume, or not a huge box, so people might assume that it's not got any depth to it. But yeah, we've been getting some reviewers in. I don't want to jump the gun on that, but they've all said, yeah, you've clearly got the depth that you were looking for, which was important to us. Yeah.
So moving on, explain. Now, as I say, we try and make We're Not Wizards as accessible as possible.
Right.
So, using words of 3 syllables or less. No, using various different plants you would find in a garden. No, let's get serious for a second. If you were explaining it to somebody, if somebody turned up at the club and you had your little box in front of you and the game, and you were saying, do you want to have a go?
Yeah.
What would you say to people? How would you explain? What would be how would you explain what the game's about, or what it does? How do you play it? What would you say to somebody that was asking that question?
And being non-serious for a second, when you say, "Do you want to have a go?" you mean in the non-Scottish? Do you wish to begin a fight?
Exactly. You
Right,
got a box,
okay,
man. Is that a square box? You want a square goal, like?
A square goal. Right. Okay. So go on. Tangent again.
Brilliant.
It is. We should do this more often.
Come back next week.
So it's for. Let's assume that those people have not played a role-playing game before. If we'll leave it at that, then what we're trying to do is take. Oh, sorry. I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll go with what I said at the expo, because we were in. There was a competition called Wyvern's Lair, which is like the gamers' answer to Dragon's Den, or I think they call it Shark Tank for your American listeners. And basically, I think there was about 50 entries, and we got down to the finals, and we were asked to go and pitch your game in front of a live audience and a bunch of industry judges.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
Which was really fun. What it was for me, I think, a lot of people don't like the public speaking bit, but I really enjoyed it. And the pitch went along the lines of, do you remember? If you remember fighting fantasy books, choose your own adventure books, put your hand up. If you like playing Oblivion, Skyrim, those kind of video games, put your hand up. Or if you've ever played a role-playing game or fancy playing a role-playing game, because we were aware that it was, a lot of board gamers in the room, put your hand up. And that was our gambit. And by that point, 70% of the room had their hands up, which was great. Yeah. And then the final part of the pitch was, and, if you feel you don't have enough time to play those kinds of games, put your hands down. And of course, everybody put their hand down as well. And that is basically the pitch on Legends Untold, which is we're trying to give really, really deep, immersive adventure games. It's not a dungeon crawler in that it's not just hack and slash. There's a lot of other things in that game, but making it accessible. You can play it in an hour. You can set it up in 5 minutes, which is really important to me. And the one thing, I don't know what you're like, but I absolutely hate waiting on my turn. I cannot abide it in any way. So for me, there's no player downtime at all.
I'm okay, because if
you okay with it?
well, if I kind of grumble about stuff like that, I just get a really kind of Paddington Bear stare from Colin, and he just kind of puts me in my place, you know.
Right. Well, you won't have any Paddington Bear stairs for this one. It's very frantic, deliberately so. And so that's kind of the game. And the idea is that you can play it solo or cooperatively. And you don't need a GM to play it as a board game. You don't need I guess if you were playing some other games, then you would need somebody to be that gameskeeper almost, to play the part of the denizens of the cave or whatever it is you're exploring. You don't need that. The game does it for you.
All right.
But if you want to play it as an RPG in its own right, you can do so as well by adding a GM into it.
Okay.
So it's pretty different in that you can play it as a board game or as an RPG.
So the mechanics-wise, you've mentioned choose your own adventure, which means, in my view, what I would do is, as I was going about places, I would. Now, I've not looked into it much because I was waiting for you to kind of explain. I feel that when we're talking about games like this, a lot of the time, I like to kind of hear it almost first, second time myself, you know, because if I grasp it, it means anybody can grasp it, because I'm a bear of very small brain, as Winnie the Pooh would say. I would view that you would turn over a card and you'd say, okay, we're at this destination, this is what's here, these are the options, this is potentially what you could face, and then you would overcome the obstacles, and from there you would make a decision on where you were going kind of next. Am I close or am I far away?
No, you're close. So for example, you to play a typical turn, okay, you would if let's say that it's you and 3 buddies playing it, so there are 4 of you playing. Basically, every turn somebody chooses to take the scout, which is the guy that goes at the head of the party.
Okay.
Somebody goes the guard, who's the guy at the rear of the party, and everybody else is in the center. Okay, so that's the first thing you do when and you'll have a little card in front of you, which is the map. So if you can think about for the guys that do role-playing games that draw on all these sheets of acetate and draw out maps and so forth, you don't need to do that in this game, because all the cards are on these beautiful little maps that you join together. Okay, so you set out your marching order, your party order, so to speak, and then the scout chooses which exit from the room they wish to take. So decision 1, where do you want to go? And then they make a decision on whether they want to sneak or not, which the basic mechanic is that if you sneak, you will get an advantage on scouting into the next room.
All right.
But it will cost you time, and the more time you spend, the worse things happen in the location or the environment that you're handing in. So if you hang around for too long in the sewers, then you have to draw event decks as you spend events from the event deck as you spend time, and that may involve floods or explosions or whatever. So it's everything's always risk reward in the game.
So basically, if you do decide to stay behind on something, it can be sometimes worth your while, or is the whole push to kind of get you to move on as quickly as you possibly can?
We originally called the mechanic urgency, but we changed it to spending and gaining time, because it was just easier for people to grasp. But it's all about keeping the urgency of the game up. So that is how you know you'll be finished in an hour, because you'll either win the game, or you'll probably have run out of time, and all of the various events and everything else in the deck will have basically ended that scenario for you. So it's a keep going mechanism as well, we want to keep the pace frenetic. And so basically, when you get into that new room, there'll be a number of icons on that card. You won't have known what you're going to draw, so the scout draws the card and he matches it up using specific lighting rules. We call it dynamic mapping. I can show you sometime.
All
but
right.
Basically, if you imagine you go from a dark exit, then you draw a card and it has a dark exit and a bright exit and what we call an ambient exit, the middle one. Then you have to match dark to dark, but you can choose whether it's in portrait or landscape variations. So there's never going to be a map the same way twice, if you see what I mean. There's so many variations. It's infinite, the maps, and you map it dynamically together as you go. So when you build that map, it will then tell you whether you draw from the adventure deck or you have an obstacle or so forth. And coming back to your question, if it's an obstacle, let's say you draw an obstacle which was a trap. Let's call it a falling ceiling trap. Yeah. So somebody's tripped a wire and the ceiling's fallen down on the party. Well, in this case, the card will demark who in the party is impacted, and for that particular trap, it's the center. So the two guys that thought they were safe in the center will actually be hit if the trap is triggered on this occasion.
Oh, right, okay.
But if it was for example, a shooting dart trap like Indiana Jones type thing, then it might be the guy at the back, or if it's a pitfall trap, it might be the guy at the front. And what determines whether you've triggered it or not is the decision you made in the prior room as to whether you sneaked or not. Remember I mentioned a bit about the spending time?
Yeah.
So that will give you a bonus on you going into that new room, and also the lighting level of the room you've come from. This is the easiest way to explain this is, imagine you're in a room right now and you're looking out the window. It'll be very bright in your room, but very dark outside.
Yes.
So everybody outside could see you through the blinds or whatever, but you can't see them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's the same in the game that we play. We call it dynamic lighting, and what we mean is that it's usually safer to scout from the dark exit. Yeah. So you've got a lower roll to make. So if you come from a dark exit and you sneak, you are likely to be what we call alert. It's ABC, alert, bold, or careless. Whereas if you go from a bright exit, i.e., everybody can see where you're coming from, you're less likely to succeed. And so if you're careless, you trigger the trap. Trap is just one of the cards in it, but it was just to give you an example. Now let's say you weren't careless and triggered the trap. In that case, you will then have two options. You can either try and avoid the trap, or disarm the trap and try and get the monsters to set it off instead. And that is your choose your own adventure part, where you pick a test, you select how you want to do it, you use kit and skills and so forth to do forth. And so I guess the main part of the game I'd want to get across is that it's deliberately set up to only be about 30% combat. It isn't a hack and slash game. Combat's important, but 2/3 of the game is actually dealing with obstacles, working as a team, that sort of thing.
And at the end of the day, if you want a kind of a hack and slash game, there's so many dungeon crawlers out there that you can...
And good ones as well.
Yeah, let's not slag off the dungeon crawlers. But
absolutely not. I will never disrespect anybody else's game.
But I think it was interesting is in terms of the combat side of things, it was something that was brought up in the recent episode they did with Magic and Steel, which they were saying that they've done an entire D&D campaign and they've really only had a couple of battles because it doesn't... Battles in D&D or battles in role-playing sometimes don't make the most entertaining things, and sometimes you can end up in some horrific war of attrition where you can spend 45 minutes just trying to hack somebody down in order to make yourself make your way forward. So in terms of the combat for what you're doing, you say it's only a small time. I mean, is there dice?
It is fun. I'll explain it, but it is fun. But the way that the combat and it's funny actually, some of the people at the expo said, "Oh, you need to put more monsters and more combat into it," which I guess what I would say to that is it's easily enough done. You just jig the deck so that there are more more foes in it. But exactly that. How we got to designing a combat was because I sat there playing a game of, I think it was Star Wars, the role-playing game. Which, don't get me wrong, my mates love it, and I love the universe and generally playing it and so forth. But I think on that particular evening we spent about 2 hours just doing a combat, and I said, "This is nuts. We just got to do." And that's when they were like, "Yeah, just go to your room and do it then, Kev. Shut up." So went away and did it. But the design ethos is that you should be able to, including combat, clear any room. So what I mean by this is that you can choose how you're going to go into the room. You can deal with any obstacles. You can search the room and deal with any combat in 5 minutes. That's for a whole room. That's the plan. Okay, and no matter how many players you've got, and the combat itself, the way it works is that the alertness rating I mentioned to you, whether you're alert, bold, or careless, which was an impact from your scouting,
yes,
that basically dictates what you can and can't do in combat. So each of you will have a weapon, okay, and the weapons are based on the Dark Ages. We wanted to make something that was a bit different, so it's more if you think of the Vikings, that sort of thing. So there's no +5, holy swords of vengeance in the game. It's much more here's a rough axe because it's grim and gritty up north. That's where we are.
we are.
And the each of the weapons has a number of weapon talents that you can use with that weapon. So it makes each weapon feel very, very different. So if you use an axe, for example, it's very much a risk-reward gamble weapon, and you can go for it with your dice to hit, and I'll explain that in a second. And a lot of the talents will let you perhaps do additional damage, but you've got to choose before you roll what happens. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But if you take the spear, it can be used as an extremely defensive weapon, and a lot of the time, if somebody attacks you, the talents that you'll have with the spear effectively help the other players do things. So it works. It works very differently. And to give you an idea, if you were taking on a goblin, for example, I wanted to make it really quick but really deep and interesting. What we've done is make it so that you take your hero, you roll 3d6 because everything's on a bell curve to try and keep it random but statistically realistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So you're not gambling on getting a 20. Yeah. So it's 3d6. So if you're in that spot of 9 to 12 without any modifiers with a weapon, that's what we would call a trade blow. So that means that you roll those 3d6 and you and the goblin take damage at the same time. Okay?
All right. Okay.
If you get below that result, you'll get a push back, which means that you pass -2 onto the next player onto his roll, which is much worse. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Below that is a fumble, which means you take the damage that is dictated on the monster's card. Yeah. And then if you roll above the sweet spot, so just above it, it's an advance, and you give a +2 onto the next player, which is very, very helpful. And above that, you get a strike, and that strike will give you the damage dictated by the weapon. And that's what we call threshold combat. Yeah. So you're only rolling 3d6 once for both you and your opponent. That's why we keep it to 5 minutes, because you're minimizing the dice rolling. And where it gets interesting is the talents can only be played depending on the result you get. So, for example, when we research staffs and how they're used, a lot of it's what they call winding. You effectively, somebody hits you and you parry their blow, and then you do something back.
Yeah.
So the way a staff works is you effectively want to get a trade blows result all the time, try and turn that into something else, like an advance for another player. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is different to using, for example, the axe or the bow, which are much more you want to get a strike to try and turn it into a strike and an advance for somebody else. So each weapon will play very, very differently, and combat is very, very quick and very brutal, and also incredibly cooperative. We have. Are you the kind of guy that likes to take the bow and sit at the back of a group? Or are you an up front and in there kind of guy?
It depends. It depends. Usually on a Thursday, I am definitely the bow at the back kind of a guy, just because by that time I think I'm almost like peak, kind of my vision's kind of there. I know, end of the week, but I'm not completely tired. I've still got the skills. Whereas Monday morning, it's just charging with abandon. Something isn't nailed down, it gets kicked out the way. Cars, trees, small animals. If I had a sword, it would just be absolute carnage. So I think that's where I would lay. I think probably Tuesday would be a bit of the middle. I think probably Wednesday would be my day off, and I think
Wednesday your day off.
Sunday morning I'd probably just play Merry Hell with an axe.
Well, on the Thursday, let's assume that you're getting let loose on the Thursday. That's the day you're playing with your pals in your gaming group. They're all going to hate you because, remember I said in Melee, if you fumble, you take the damage from the other. It's effectively you've been hit by your opponent. Yeah.
Yeah.
In ranged combat, if you fumble, then you effectively strike friendly fire onto somebody else that's in melee.
See, I could learn to live with that.
It's great fun watching your pals get irate because you've just shot them in the ass with an
So
arrow.
it's not me, it's the randomness of dice that we've got here. Don't
Yes.
don't shoot the messenger, shoot the cube
I'm
instead.
sorry I played that talent to make myself miss. Yes.
So
Yeah.
how you said a game takes about an hour,
About an hour, yeah.
and you sound like you've gone into there's an awful lot of thought here that's gone
It's
into the various rules. I mean,
crazy.
you
Yeah,
said 3
sometimes.
years. I mean, is the game that you started off with, is that even close to the game that you're about to launch on Kickstarter?
I guess the soul and the vision of it's there. We started off. Its original working name is actually R0, as in role playing game light. So we just called it R0 because typing out role playing game light was very, very tiresome. and it's true to that, because that basically involved lighting and scouting was important to me, and having some kind of fun combat in there was important to me. But then it's just that we bolted on so many other things. So I was really keen that we have the ability that you don't have to fight everything. So so we had to come up with a way of sneaking in shadows past some monsters, because we want some people who are going to play this solo perhaps just to say, I never want to fight something. I just want to try and sneak past everything and chat to everything and stuff.
Well, I mean,
and you can do that.
It's the whole running past the monsters. I mean, one of the video games that I'm a massive fan of is the Dark Souls series. And one of the things you can do with that is, if you don't want to fight people, 9 times out of 10, there's a way of kind of getting round with either sneaking past people or being really sneaky and doing a lot of backstabs and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to, I guess, player's choice.
Player choice. The whole game, the whole game is about player choice. Even just that bit I mentioned about sneaking and scouting and everything else. I think somebody I was on the solo forum for Facebook the other day for board gamers, and somebody was asking about it, and I said, well, I can run you through the game if it doesn't seem too spammy, and they said, no, I'll go for it, and we did it, and I showed them that just imagine one room on a poker card in your hand, and it would take you about 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes tops to play it, but that one game, without even a combat, had 15 decisions to be made, and pretty much everybody in the forum said, wow, that's great. So it's decisions, and that's the essence of the game. The dice are just there to make it work. It's about decisions. And that's the bit that's taken a long time to get there. And the other thing is just been taking, we've had to learn a lot of things, like how do you actually make these cards and so forth. But the other point I wanted to bring out in the game that took quite a bit of time to bring in was the what I would call the bard type part of the game, but especially the guys from Steel Empire will very much get this, but the ability to bluff, converse, charm, and intimidate your way through other parts of the caves or the dungeons, and that's I suspect you're of a similar vintage, sir, but if you remember the game Nightmare.
Oh, of course.
There we go. Which a lot of people remembered at the expo, actually. But, that's...
I think, do you know what?
An homage to that.
I think people that even don't remember Nightmare or never watched it, it's like a shared forced nostalgia. If you said to somebody born in 1996, remember Nightmare, mate? And he'd be like, yup, all over that. Used to love it. All over it. It was, used to get my mum to tape it on telly so we could fast forward between the adverts, kind of thing.
There we go.
There we go with Tradeguard. And then they got the other guy in who was like Tradeguard without the beard. And he looked a bit weirder.
Yeah, that's right. It's very much, we don't have an eye shield. I think that probably just would sell the game if we had that. But but that there's lots of things in there where it's I tried so hard to toy with getting people to walk in the dark with a helmet on. No. But there's lots of stuff in the game.
We're not in Dunfermline on a Friday night.
I tried. There's lots of stuff in the game. It's here's an injured gnomish caver. You've now got to have a conversation with him, and the outcome of that conversation will dictate whether you get to pass on to the next room being alert, or whether it's going to cost you time which you don't want to do, or whether they even might attack you. And that took a lot of time, primarily actually because fitting all that on a poker card is really hard, really, really hard. So that took a lot of time.
Is there stuff you've stripped out? I mean, is there stuff that you've kind of got, because the danger of any creative work is it's not when to add, it's when to stop. I know that from, I'm not a game designer. I think everybody's got a game inside them that they would
I believe
design
everybody does.
I think they do. But
yeah.
I mean, I do quite a lot of art, and what I found is I've ruined what I thought was a decent picture by adding in more detail than I have by letting it alone and letting the person that's looking at the picture put in the detail themselves. I think they say that about the best kind of horror movies is the stuff that you don't see as opposed to the stuff that you do see. Did you ever get to the point where you felt you were kind of like, I'm trying to tell people this is going to be playable in an hour, but we're kind of getting to the point where we're feature heavy and we had to strip back out again? Did you ever have to do that at all?
Well, yes, and I'm very fortunate in that I work with Inspiring Games is largely two people, myself and a guy called Hugh Ducker, who's the design director. Great guy, and Hugh and I robustly challenge each other a lot. And I got asked the other day about, what would you say helps design games and so forth. And my genuine opinion is pick somebody you've got a huge amount of respect for, but that you don't agree with on everything, because otherwise you'll both just persuade yourselves that you're fabulous and not get anywhere.
Yes.
So Hugh has the unenviable task of translating what is in Kev brain and trying to make it, work for the real world. Because in my head, I said the other day, I was like, I always say I've got this concept, guys. It's a really simple game, and then my friends usually burst out laughing and say, "Have you ever tried getting a whiteboard and doing a decision tree on your games, Kev? It's almost impossible." So I think it's simple.
I'll tell you what it's like. It's like the Enigma code.
Yes.
But with trees.
So Hugh's remit, bless him, is to basically get in a car and drive around Kev's head collecting tokens, and then try and put that on a paper to explain the game and rules for people. And it's a big challenge. Money? Yeah, he gets petrol money.
That's good.
But it's a bit of a challenge. But so we did hack a lot of stuff back to make it work. And it's an interesting one, because when we were at the expo, I think we took some stats on this, and it was about 93% said they loved the game. It was just hard it's the real problem for me just now, trying to launch this just now. It's trying to explain to people how to play the game. Once they got it in their head, they were there, but of course, because we're trying to put so much depth into it, there is a bit of a steep learning curve. And whilst it would be, he always says this, that Kev, there isn't just a little button you can push and you turn up like a hologram as a Kev app and explain how to play the game. You have to be able to get that from a piece of paper.
That would be quite cool, though.
It would be cool, so we're
working
on
that on Kickstarter. If you said
designer app
for if we reach the 4.7 million stretch goal.
Yes. Then we will get Princess Leia to turn up and say, "Help me, Obi-Wan." Yeah. So we're
or Han Solo.
Or Han Solo.
You have to say both. You can't leave them alone. Or Luke Skywalker. But I mean, really?
Yeah.
When you've got I mean,
we'll
Mark Hamill's
we'll do the Jar Jar
cool.
version.
Mark Hamill's cool and all that, but Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Harrison Ford, indeed. So that what we've actually done is we've ended up parking a lot of into the cool idea. Let's put it in an expansion if this thing funds category is the answer to your question. Because I think I was getting asked this by one of your colleagues, one of your buddies, David Wright, the other day, actually, and just in terms of where you go.
Good old Dave.
Good old Dave. And he was saying, well, what about future plans and so forth? And this is where, again, in my head, it's pretty simple, but somebody else was guffawing away. And I said, well, we've planned out the first 54 occupations. And he just started bursting out laughing. So yeah, it's largely, it's trying to make it, put it into expansions if it funds is the answer to the question. The real hardship I've got just now, to give you a really good example, I got feedback from 4 different reviewers today, because the game's out in review stage just now, because of course there's no point in me going on Kickstarter and telling you the game's fabulous. I need reviewers to say that if I was going to be the game in public. And one of them came back and said it's a very steep learning curve. I'm getting my head round it. But then to be fair, he said, "Oh, I'd misunderstood this in the rules, etc., etc." And at the other end of the scale, I said to him, "Is this too complicated?" And he said, "No, it's medium weight at most. This is not too heavy." It's so.
And you're like
so
this
what
at
do
the
you do?
camera, you're like that. Da.
Yeah, I was like, what do you do? And he just said, do not take any of the depth out of it. So, I mean, we've got to make a commercial decision because we want it to be, of course, we want every single gamer in the world to want to play it, but being realistic, we've probably got to pick a part of the market. And I think where we've got to is we've accepted that it's not a gateway game. It is accessible, and it's going to be far easier for somebody to get into than for example, picking up a 400-page RPG that's never played an RPG before. That could be quite intimidating. It's not like that.
So,
but,
how many? I mean, in terms of what you get, and you know what? It's obviously you want. Well, when you get, somebody's going to look at this and they're going to go, okay, so it's not gateway, so it's probably something that's suitable for myself. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
When I open up my 10 by 15 box,
your box of delights. Yes.
my box of there's a show.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say no more. I'll just Freudian slip how that reviewer's name got in. Yeah.
Yeah. When you open up the box, what you going to find?
Yeah, so the base game just now, the absolute, just to get it funded, is a rulebook and 110 poker-sized cards.
Okay.
And on those 110 poker-sized cards, we have tried to be so, and this is the pro-Scotland bit, we've tried to be so Scottish and so frugal, it's untrue. And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say you've got a card with an axe on it, yeah? You start off with a rough axe, and then when you upgrade, how annoying is it if you're playing a role-playing game and you've got an axe? I'm guessing the Steel Empire guys will get this, and if you've annoyed the DM or the GM, they might give you a mace rather than a better axe. Yeah?
Yes,
you really wanted a better axe. So the way we've done it is, well, no, that makes no sense. You should get what you want. So imagine you've got a rough axe, and then you rotate that poker card through 180 degrees, and you get an improved axe, which has got better threshold stats in it for your bell curve that I was referring to earlier. Yeah. So it's an improved axe. So basically, you're getting two weapons for the price of one. That's the Scottish bit we're trying to do. Because when we originally started this thing and we spoke to a manufacturer, they said, make a game, make it with 110 poker cards. That is your cheapest gateway game of making something that you can do what you want to do. And of course, so we've tried to use as many of those as we can. Another example would be, each of your talents that we've got, if you've got skill talents, has a number of abilities in it. And it's much easier to see when you've got the card in your hands, but basically you can exhaust or drain the card, and that is you physically exhausting or draining your life force. So imagine you've got a hero made up of, say, 2 skill talents and 1 weapon talent. Okay.
Yeah.
When you want to use one of the abilities on those talent cards, you will either exhaust it, which is you tiring yourself out, or drain it, which means you're kind of really, really hurting yourself. But each of those talents will have probably 3 abilities on it. So we're giving you, on 3 cards, we're trying to give you 9 different cards worth of things to do. So we're really trying.
Sounds very Pixel Tactics.
Yeah, we're trying to give you as much as we can.
No, that's fine. So
it's font 1. No, I'm joking.
It's font 1.
Yeah.
My eyesight definitely. It's the Scottish version. What it says, it's just you open up the box. It's got 1 card in it, and it says, "Write your own bloody game."
Yes.
I'm off down the pub. Thanks for giving me beer money, pal. I'll see you later. I'm off for a chippy. And perhaps playing the puggy, because I heard the Noel Edmonds one is full and it's ready to drop any second.
That all sounds very familiar.
This is very true. It's the watering hole in Dunfermline. We do love you.
Yep.
But how much is it going to be?
Oh, the killer question. So we actually went to everybody else at the expo and said, how much would you pay for this? Because I wanted to know what they'd say. And we came back and they gave us all the feedback, and we're hoping to retail it at £21 and Kickstarter probably 19, with potentially an early bird discount there on as well.
So that is potentially, doing the maths.
Oh.
That is, I'm thinking about it. And I'm not maybe going Wan Lam, but possibly Lee Gardens. That is a sweet and sour chicken, Hong Kong style, fried rice, prawn crackers, a chow mein, bottle of juice, and a poke of chips.
Yeah.
19 quid.
19 quid.
There you
and
go.
that will give you 8 scenarios in it. That's on the base game. We're going to add more cards in if we get stretch goals for free, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But eight planned scenarios in that game. So even if you played the game and you beat everyone concurrently, yeah, which would be some going. I've not met anybody that can do that yet, and never played it again, you've theoretically had about 8 gaming hours worth for £19.
You can't
argue with that, right?
Not really.
But you won't be able to do that because you can of course play it with each other hero differently as well, and because it's all modular, there's no class restrictions in the game. There are thousands of different hero builds. That's part of the fun, is people like building up the hero. And the other bit I wanted to say is that that's just the base set, which is caves and goblins. And if we can hit a certain stretch goal in the Kickstarter, then the step 2 would be the sewers and the lizardkin, because what we've set up is this massive city that people are trying to get into, which genuinely, flying the Scottish Gaelic flag, is called Dunmordain, which means rock on the Great River.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're trying to get these Dunfermline. There you go. It's a node to you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
I shall take us back to the other Dunfermlinites, and we shall hold your name high.
So there we go. So Dunmordain, guys, and you guys are trying to. There's 5 ways into it, and the first 2 are the caves and the sewers. But where the trick is that you could buy the sewers deck, which will have eight different scenarios in it, and all of the foes from the sewers deck, which are the lizardkin, our take on lizardmen, you could play with the caves deck and vice versa. So you've immediately doubled your game just by doing that. Okay. Secondly, in the caves deck, you would get 4 heroes with all the various talents. There's 15 skill talents, 16 weapon. 16 skill talents, 15 weapon talents, etc., and 5 weapons in it. In the sewers deck, you get a mirror of that using different things, and everything can be interchanged between the two. So you've just added double the amount of modular flexibility between the two as well, if that makes sense.
Yes. No,
yeah.
It does.
So it's huge. It's huge.
And
that's why it's taken 3 years.
Well, it's all about to kick off, isn't it? Campaign begins on the 15th.
On the 15th, that's right, yes.
Are you, as we said, you're grizzly bear scared?
Yeah, we're excited, but we're excited, but scared as well, because we've never done it before, and we just don't. The last thing we want, of course, after 3 years' work, is for it to fall like a damp squib. That would not be good. It's we want it to fly, but we've of course never run a Kickstarter campaign before. We've tried to learn all the lessons we can. The forum that you're on, the UK Kickstarter forum, you've seen me posting on that and asking various inane questions. Yeah. But we're out there. The main feedback we got at the expo in June, which was a great experience, apart from doing the pitch itself, and that was real vindication that people loved it. We'd never met before. When people played it, the main feedback we got was, I would buy your game today, but go and make it prettier, because some people like shiny things, which is fair enough. Yeah. So of course we've spent the last 6 months paying for as much artwork as we can afford and justify to our respective wives.
No, there's certainly been. I've certainly seen the post that you've made about kind of the graphics and how you've improved them.
Yeah.
If people want to find you, now this is the important thing. Now, obviously, when the Kickstarter goes live, we will. This will probably go out. I can't say when. I'm not sure, but it'll definitely go out before the Kickstarter launches.
Wonderful.
But if people want to find you and they say, "Hey, Kevin, we just love your chat. If we want to hear more of Kevin's chat, how would we find Kevin, and how would we find Inspiring Games?"
Sure. Down the pub, I believe. No. So the best way of finding out, we at first put everything we could about the game up on our website, okay, which is www.inspiringgames.com. Mm-hmm. And what we found, though, 2 Gs. But what we found is that it doesn't matter how hard we tried, gamers being gamers, everything gravitated to Board Game Geek.
Right.
So there is actually a game out there called Untold Legends, which is an old PSP game. Which, of course, on Google, when we started putting ourselves up 6 months ago on Tinternet, we were on kind of page 3 or something. But now, if you type in Legends Untold, it will come up first every time on Google, which is great, on the Board Game Geek site, and then it's usually the Inspiring Games is number 3. So what we've done then is to try and feed the fans, to for the people that are asking the questions, is to keep a really healthy log and an update of what is going on the Board Game Geek page. In addition to that, we're on Facebook. If you just look up Inspiring Games on Facebook, you'll find us there.
Okay.
And we also try and put stuff out on Twitter as well. Where now the
what are you on Twitter?
The Legends Untold, the Legends Untold bit was taken on Twitter.
All right.
So we are at Inspired Tribe is our name there, and the reason for the tribe bit is the one bit I didn't get to in the game is that we are trying to give something back to the community when we design the world that is for Legends Untold. And what we really want is for the community or the tribe, so to speak, to help us design the game and give us ideas on what they think would be a nice part of the game. Because there are, some companies out there who've, let's say, perhaps deserted their following somewhat with some of the commercial decisions they've made, and we do not want to be that business. We want people to say it would be really, really cool to have this in your world, and so we want to benchmark that and get ideas and get a tribe going. So that is the tribe of Inspiring Games and the at Inspired Tribe. We want people's help to decide what to do next.
Cool. Now we will put all of that information and much more into the show notes. As I say, the Kickstarter link will go in there as well as soon as we have it, including any various bits of information that if you want to go and find out, you can. I guess if you want to, if you've listened to this, and thank you for bearing with my absolute silliness tonight. I have had a Sprite. I will say that.
Right.
And it just does things. But if you
no
want,
whiskey in it,
no, nothing at all. No, the Sprite's enough. But if you want to pay attention to what we're doing, or find out what we're doing, or know or learn who to block on Google, you can see us on Facebook. We're at We're Not Wizards. You can see us on our website, which is we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. You can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us, if you search us in all these kind of various podcasty type places. We're on Acast, we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, Podbean. Anywhere along those places you will find us if you search for us. If you like what you heard tonight, if you thought Kevin was fantastic and he's deserving of 10 stars, and I was just a wittering fool and deserving of 2, then search for the happy average, which is a 5-star, and leave that delightful review on iTunes. It helps. It helps for some reason. I don't know why. It kind of boosts our numbers. Somebody told me it was something really, really important. I was kind of half listening to what they were saying, but it was really sunny outside, so it was pretty. So you can, do that. That would be nice. But I think, well, first of all, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. We've kind of chin-wagged back and forth, pal, for a little while about getting this done, and due to, I think, both of us kind of having kids and stuff, it's kind of happened and then not happened and then happened again, and then it's happened, which is always good.
Happened.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, so, indeed, thank you from us.
No, I appreciate you being on. This has been a lot of fun. But the main thing is, we are many things, but we're not wizards.
We're not wizards.
Are we wizards, Kevin?
We're not wizards.
Well, listen, if you look at me with your little magic wand, I'll be stitching you one, pal.
We must do this again.
We will do this again. It's just a general, wondrous bit of nonsense, but... Listen, check out the game. check out Inspiring Games. Just have a look. There'll be lots of stuff to look at and see in the show notes. I shall make sure it is put everywhere I can find it, young man.
Thank you.
And the only thing that's left to do is to say a goodbye from Kevin.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you again for listening, and we shall be back as soon as we can. But bye for now.